Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and before we get into this video, for the Twitch stream, the Comics Explained Twitch stream, where we basically just stream the videos 24/7, we've got a schedule now. And so if you go to twitch.tv/comicsexplained, you'll see a schedule down there, but you can also type !schedule, and that will pull up what the schedule is, right? So it'll tell you what that week's video is. We're also going to do a live Q&A session every Friday at 6:30 p.m., and then a watch party at 7:30 p.m., right? Like watching comic book movies and different things like that together. You do need Amazon Prime to be able to do it, but yeah, so it's cool, right? So twitch.tv/comicsexplained, it's a cool concept. I like it. I think it's pretty awesome. I love talking to you guys, right? Like I was in there for like 7 hours yesterday and we made up like a comic book video game. It's basically Skyrim meets Marvel Comics. It's amazing. But yeah, so this Three Jokers story is ridiculously good, right? Like it's crazy how good it is. And here's the thing, a little bit of history here for those of you guys who are kind of coming into this and you're like, okay, I don't remember everything that's going on. So this really comes out of the events of what was basically Darkseid War, right? Like kind of like this revelation when Batman was on the Mobius chair, which was the chair that granted him absolute knowledge. And he asked the question, who's the Joker? And we were told there's 3 of them. And what we were basically given here was what was essentially the original Joker, right? So the old like Bob Kane, Bill Finger Joker. Then we have the Killing Joke Joker. And then we have the Silver Age Joker, right? So we've got like 3 of them running around, 3 Jokers from 3 different eras. And at this point, we're just now learning what all this is about, right? Like 3 or 4 years after it was all kind of teased. But what this does is it basically picks up with Batman, right? Inside the Batcave, basically receiving treatment for, having been out for, fighting crime that night. Really kind of the run-of-the-mill stuff. But the cool thing about this, right? This art is done by Jason Fabok. He's probably one of the greatest artists in the entirety of comic book artistry. And of course, written by Jeff Johns. But you have this thing where like Batman's basically being tended to by Alfred. And we get these scars of Batman, right? Like the scar on his back where Bane broke his back, a scar where he was basically burned by the Riddler, where he was scratched by Catwoman, where he was bit by Killer Croc, he was stabbed by the Scarecrow, he was shot by Joker, just like all these different scars. But the cool thing about this is we're given like these different injuries at the hands of various Jokers over the years, right? The 3 different Jokers, right? Where he was sprayed with the acid lapel, where he was cut with a playing card. Like it's kind of cool, right? Because we get this little bit of a flashback to like the early days of Batman, the very early days of Bruce, right? Where you have Bruce and his family walking out of the Mask of Zorro movie. Bruce is excited about it. He's like, yeah, man, it's like the coolest thing ever. And then they end up down a dark alley because his dad wanted to take a shortcut and his parents were shot by Joe Chill. This is a little bit of an origin for Bruce. Now, this is kind of, if I had to be honest, it's kind of Jeff Johns just being like, let's get to the humanity of all of this, right? Like, let's break Bruce down to his most base form, right? Who is Bruce? He's a sad little kid crying because his mom and his daddy got shot, right? That's one of the best lines from like Batman Begins, but like where Bruce Wayne, like after his parents are killed, he goes to like Tom Wilkinson, who's in like that bar, that really seedy bar, and he's like, there's a congressman and there's a judge and so on and so forth. And he's like, you think because your mommy and your daddy got shot that you understand what this life is like? Like you've never tasted desperate, right? Like you're Bruce Wayne, you're the Prince of Gotham. You'd have to drive 1,000 miles to find someone who doesn't know your name. Like I love that line, right? Because it perfectly encapsulates Bruce Wayne, right? He's just a little rich kid whose mommy and daddy got shot and now he understands the criminal underworld. Like it's cool because in the early days that was not the case. Now in the midst of all this, they're suddenly met by the arrival of a broadcast. It says that like the Moxon crime family were all executed at a restaurant essentially, and the execution was done at the hands of the Joker. The next thing that really goes on here is that we switch over to Batgirl, and while Batgirl's exercising, we end up getting this news footage of a comedian who was executed by the Joker. And it's kind of cool because for her, she basically hits at this idea of her having been shot by the Joker during Killing Joke, which the reason why this Joker is kind of considered separate from the other ones is because originally Killing Joke was not part of the DC continuity, right? It was a story that was just out there by itself somewhere, but it was wildly popular when it came out, right? When it was released, and even now, it's still considered to be the definitive origin of the Joker. But the idea is that Barbara Gordon kind of relives a time when she was shot by the Joker just to basically torture her and to show her tortured images to Jim Gordon to prove that he could make Jim Gordon go insane. But the next thing it does is it switches over to something that I totally did not expect. It switches to the Red Hood, right? It switches over to Jason Todd. And you have Jason Todd here who's basically facing off against some henchmen, right? Just beating the crap out of these guys, all the while reliving these memories when the Joker beat him to death. right, when the Joker basically killed him. Now, again, as most of you guys probably know, this this was in response to the fact that DC fans didn't like Jason Todd, right? That when Dick Grayson was brought onto the scene in the old Detective Comics stories, and he was the first Robin and the sidekick of Batman for, something like 30 years or something like that, when DC finally rolled him over and made him Nightwing, when he was basically aged up, they wanted to keep the element of Robin, right? So they brought in Jason Todd. The problem was that Jason Todd's origin story was like identical to Dick Grayson's, and fans didn't like it because they thought that it was DC just kind of throwing away the story of Dick for the purpose of just like creating another version of his character. And so what this did is it led to DC killing Jason Todd. But the Red Hood's here because he's basically interrogating the guys of the Joker, right? He's interrogating his henchmen and is like, tell me where the Joker is. But the next thing we do is we pick up with this kind of death of these individuals at the Ace Chemical Factory. And you've got like Jim Gordon and you've got Harvey Bullock and you've got these guys responding and kind of looking over this whole scene. Batman, of course, ends up showing up here. And the reason why is because what's happened is that over the course of a single night, all three Jokers struck, right? The Moxon crime family, the Ace Chemical Factory being robbed, and the comedian being killed. This all happened in one night. And that's where like Harvey Bullock and Jim Gordon and them were like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, right? There's no way the Joker could have done all three of these things. He'd have to be in three places at once. The only way it's true is if there's three of the Jokers running around. And notice this, the immediate answer here is, okay, well, if there is more than one Joker, then you have one Joker and two imposters. That's the knee-jerk throwaway reaction. But you basically end up having Batman essentially talking to somebody, and of course the cops think he's more or less lost his mind, only for us to find out he's talking to Batgirl. And that this Ace Chemical, this vat basically, is the one the Joker originally fell into back in like Batman #1, or really kind of, not really Batman #1 definitively, but the original Joker fell into this vat of Ace Chemicals and became the Joker, right? So it has significance, it has meaning, only for us to find out that one of these guys is basically still alive, right? One of these individuals who was kind of doused in the chemicals and so on is still alive. The other part of this is that we end up finding out that when it came to these three particular crimes, the Joker wanted people to know he did them. It's why, like, when he was walking through this Ace Chemical Factory, he looked at every single security camera that was working. It's why he live streamed one of the murders. In every single one of these cases, he wanted people to know he was there. So people would kind of look and it would literally drive them crazy and say like, what in the world is going on here? Now for these three bodies that were here, these are just a distraction. It's designed to keep the cops focusing on them as opposed to focusing on the tire tracks. Of course, Batman picks up on that, but with this one guy being alive, he's thrown into an ambulance and basically begun to, they start the purpose of getting him to the hospital, only for us to find out that inside the ambulance is Jason Todd, right? Is the Red Hood, who immediately grabs this guy and like starts getting to work on him and is like, tell me everything you know. Now, here's the cool thing. This is what I love so much about this, right? I firmly believe that in DC Comics right now, no one can write Batman characters the way that Jeff Johns can. Scott Snyder is really good at like world building, right? He's good at like building a mythos. I think Jeff Johns is, a little better than that, proven by the nature of like the Green Lantern mythos. But Scott Snyder's good at writing a particular kind of story, the creepy Batman. But in terms of writing Batman as we imagine him, right? Like this dark, brooding character. When you think of like Jason Todd, as like this hardcore vigilante, Jeff Johns knocks it out of the park here, right? Like he smashes it out of the park, because when Batman breaks into the ambulance, right, and confronts the Red Hood and Batman get into like a little bit of a scuffle, right? This leads to Barbara Gordon basically using a kind of drill of sorts attached to the wheel of her motorcycle and then taking out the tires. But then we switch over to this truck, right? We switch over to the Ace Chemical truck, which is taken and then driven into like this kind of wooded area. And then you end up having, of course, like the Joker getting out of it, the Joker walking into a house, or at least walking up to a house. He knocks on the door and he's met by the Killing Joke Joker, right? So you got two Jokers here. And so you kind of have them, going back and forth a little bit, just kind of being goofy, telling jokes, but it's designed to showcase the nature of their personalities. It's designed to show that like this Silver Age Joker was more cartoonish, right? This guy was a little more silly. Now, the reality is that this version of the Joker was in a lot of ways the one that like Steve Englehart's Joker was based on. It's the one that Batman the Animated Series Joker was based on. He was a little more sadistic than those versions, but like it's kind of that version of the Joker in a lot of ways. And then Killing Joke Joker is the one who's like dark. There's something about him that's just like, he's really, really dark, right? Like he's hiding a monster inside, right? Worse than anything we've seen, right? It just looks very sinister. But of course they get inside the house and basically Killing Joke Joker tells tells Silver Age Joker, wait until you see what the boss has cooked up. And that's what you end up getting. You kind of end up getting, these two Jokers talking to the original Joker. This is the old school Batman #1 Joker. Now look how old he looks. That's one of the first things that hit me. This guy looks old. He's been playing the part for a while. But basically he tells them, like, we're going to split into groups, right? Like, we're going to split up and we're all going to go achieve a goal, right? We're all going to do something. And so basically you end up having Batman and you have Jason Todd and you have Barbara Gordon who team up, because each of them going after a Joker alone is basically suicide because of how dangerous the Joker is. The only real way for them to seemingly pull this off is to team up on one Joker after another, right? To, all three of them hit one Joker, all three of them hit another, and then the three of them hit the last one. And that flies in the face of conventional wisdom, because historically speaking, they would have gone through individually and then like faced off against different characters, right? So like something seems a little amiss, like something seems a little strange, but it's the smartest move to make. But getting into the Gotham City Aquarium, we end up finding out that like this is where the Silver Age Joker's been, because what we end up getting here are basically the Joker fish, right? The laughing fish, the fish that have been infected with the Joker toxin. Not only that, and this is probably the single creepiest thing that I think I've ever seen in my life, a laughing shark. This is horrifying. And even Jason Todd's like, dude, that's new. That's new. Like, that's a little bonkers. But of course, then you end up having like some Silver Age henchmen who basically show up here. You end up having Gaggy, who was just kind of like, he was almost like Joker's own little Robin to a degree. It was kind of weird and a little twisted, but they basically end up, kind of going and going after Batman, because they've basically been tasked to do so by the Silver Age Joker. Now, notice as they get into this fight, there's gunshots being pulled. There's gunshots going, and those gunshots going are shooting into the tank. They're literally starting to crack the glass, right? And what this does is it leads to Jason Todd shooting the glass out of the tank. The shark comes flying out, right? It's just like this. I mean, sharks don't roar, but like, whoa, like it comes flying out and then like eats Gaggy, right? And then the Joker comes out of nowhere and basically launches his attack on like Batman and the Bat family. Now, the fact that the Joker comes running up on them with a bowl, like with a fish bowl full of the laughing fish, this is Silver Age Joker. This is the kind of stuff he did, right? This is the kind of comedic, goofy, nonsensical stuff that the Joker did back in the day. Like, that's just the way he was during the Silver Age. He's immediately incapacitated by Batman and the Bat family, right? Now, this right here is our biggest clue that something bigger is going on, because of what sense would it make to have the story have like a 3-issue story about the 3 Jokers and like they're all taken out in the first story? What kind of sense would that make, right? That'd be a little weird. You have like Commissioner Gordon and you have Harvey Bullock who chime in and say like, we got the other one, and it looks like the one that they took out was the Killing Joke Joker, although we don't really see specifically which one it is. But it's like, okay, so like he literally tells Jason Todd, right? He tells Red Hood and he tells Batgirl, keep this guy roped up. You guys know how the Joker is. He's always got something up his sleeve. Like, keep this guy away. Like make sure he's tied up, make sure he doesn't have a means of escape or anything like that. And it's one of these things where you end up having Red Hood who like pulls out one of the Joker's playing cards, and the Joker tries to spray him with like his acid lapel, but then he starts taunting Jason. And this is the smartest thing. This is what made Silver Age Joker so cool and so sadistic. If you go and you read like the old Silver Age comics of the Joker, right? If you go and you read this version of the Joker that we saw that basically existed between like the onset of the Silver Age and like the beginning of like the Crisis events, right? Like Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, right? If you look at this version of the Joker, if you look past the silliness, if you look past the nonsense of it, he's wildly dangerous and he's incredibly smart. Like if you look past all that stuff, the way he's written, he's amazing. And he was really good at getting in your head. He was really good at like getting in heroes' heads and screwing with them. And that's what he does with Jason, right? He's like, it's kind of interesting. When Jason goes to pull a gun and Barbara's like, like, don't do this, Batman wouldn't do this, the response to the Joker is, I mean, you're right, like Batman wouldn't do this, but Batman's not here, is he? Look at the facts. Let's look at what's really going on. Like, I killed this guy. I beat you with a crowbar, I blew you up, and the mistake you made, Jason, was believing that you mattered in all of it. That's the mistake you made. You believed that I did that because I was targeting you. No, I was never targeting you, Jason Todd. You're collateral damage. You were bait. I was targeting you to target him. I was hitting at you to get to Batman. And then he starts kind of making fun of him, right? He starts poking at him and basically saying like, you're basically my Robin now. That's really what you are. I mean, look at yourself. You exist in Gotham, you take people's lives, you make Batman's life an absolute living hell. Like, you're my Robin. You're my henchman. You became everything that I hoped you would. You're my henchman now. You're me. It's like, dude, like, I never looked at it that way. And it's the craziest thing, because he tells him, he's like, do you remember what you said when I was beating you with that crowbar, when I was killing you? Do you remember what you said? You said, please, please, why are you, stop doing this. I'll tell you anything you want if you stop. And it's kind of nuts because like when we're getting that little bit of history there, Jason Todd starts to cry, right? Because it's super personal. This is Jason Todd's version of like his mom and dad being shot, right? The death of Jason Todd at the hands of the Joker is far more potent because, I mean, if you go and you look at like the original origin, right? Like when he first appeared in DC Comics, his origin was the same as Dick Grayson, but that origin doesn't really count anymore. And so now it's basically like Jason Todd was an orphan, somewhere along the line. So this is like a super personal thing, right? He's being made to relive the single biggest trauma in his life. And I love the way this is being handled, right? I absolutely love the way that Jeff Johns is doing this. It makes Red Hood so personal. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I feel like this personal touch of Red Hood has been missing from DC Comics for a long time. It's one of the reasons why I stopped reading the Red Hood comics, right? Because I feel like the actual core, who really is Jason Todd, and let's focus on that, has been gone for a while. The stories have been cool and he's been shooting a lot of stuff up, but it's almost kind of been like mindless action, like mindless violence, as opposed to like the character, like focusing on the nature of the Red Hood. There's been a few stories here and there that have kind of shifted that up a bit, but like being written like this, it's amazing to see. And Jason Todd has enough, right? Like literally Red Hood has enough. And so you have Barbara Gordon watching Jason Todd and she's like, okay, literally his hand shaking. And it's like, he's literally falling in line with like the Killing Joker's philosophy, right? Like all it takes is one bad day. And it's like, he's sitting there shaking and Barbara Gordon's like, oh my God, he's going to do it. And like Jason Todd doesn't want to, but like he does it. He pulls the trigger. Barbara Gordon throws a batarang and misses. And Jason Todd shoots the Joker through the head. Like he kills the Joker who killed him. And it's just like, holy cow. And Barbara Gordon's like, what did you do? What did you do? And Jason's like, I ended it, right? Like I finally ended this. Like I finally killed the Joker. And Barbara Gordon storms out, right? Because she's like, he's like, dude, you wanted this as much as I did. And she's like, no, I didn't want any of this. And he says, let me ask you something, Barbara Gordon. When was the last time you missed when you threw your batarang? And it seems to be that like she did kind of want that. Like she did sort of want the Joker to die, like on some super personal level that she's not willing to admit to herself. She wanted that version of the Joker to die. And so like, she's like, screw you. Like she ultimately ends up storming off. And as Jason Todd just sort of staring over this body, he simply says like, I hope that's the right one, right? Like I really hope this is the right Joker, the one who killed me. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Core. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like. And I will catch you all later. Peace.